And I need y'all to look at this right here. Am I currently dilating the entire f of x by x?
No.
No, what's the only thing I'm dilating by x?
4.
The 4. You need to make sure you keep your f of x together, put parentheses around that, then dilate by x. Ah, that looks like it should.
Yep.
May have to change your window a little bit. I don't think most of us will. I'm just going to increase the y max by a little bit, say 10 or 210. There we go. So for h of x, we should have, depends on your equation, but negative 2/4 x minus 4 parentheses times x. All right. So we need to use the calculator to analyze the graph, identify the maximum. So how am I going to identify that maximum? Menu. We analyze the graph. Specifically, we're going to go to what type of analysis? Maximum. All of you should see a question right here that you have to answer first. What does it say? Graph. What do I do then? So how do I select the graph? Just move the cursor on top and hit enter, or press the touchpad, like press it in. Make sure you click on that parabola. There you go. And it says lower bound, so what do I need now? Can I hit enter where my dash line is? And you go on the other side, not of the parabola, of the vertex, right? It's just a parabola. And you go to the left-hand side of the vertex, hit enter, upper bound, scroll to the right, and hit enter. So you should see a maximum there.
For the next.
All right. Caleb, what does it say under number 5 now?
Use the calculator. Under 5.
Identify the maximum.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what should you write under number 5 after you've gone through this process? Write down the maximum, which would be the vertex, right? Your vertex is your maximum. Please note that. Hit enter. Does it say lower bound? Are you to the left of your vertex? No, look right here. Are you to the left of the vertex? So hit enter. There you go. 2, 2. Hit enter. Once it says upper bound, to the right, you hit enter. Okay. Now, we should all have this done at this point. Chloe, what does it ask us to do after we identify the maximum? Number 5, after it says identify the maximum.
It says what the main interval is h of x decreasing.
I think there was a statement even before that though. Notice how the graph changes about this point. What does that mean? What do we see that the graph is doing Or how is it changing at this point?
It started decreasing.
It starts what?
Decreasing.
Meaning, what is decreasing?
Your Y's.
The y values are decreasing, right?
But the X.
If it's decreasing after that, what was happening before?
It was
Increasing.
increasing.
It was increasing. Remember, we always read left to
Right.
right. So this blue here is an increase for me. This green here is a decrease. But we need to be careful. Number 5 says, over what domain interval is h of x decreasing? And over which interval is it increasing? So for number 5, we need to actually respond to this using our words. H of x is decreasing from blank to blank in the domain. Because remember, it's an interval of it's a domain interval of decrease. And so we need to indicate that it's in the domain. Does anyone know what the response here would be? Say again? Well, also, I will point this out. It depends on every different group, but for the one that's up on the board, where does it start to decrease? Okay, so negative 4, 8 is the entire point, but do I want the entire point? What part do I want? Why do we just want the x?
Because the domain.
So again, Jaden?
It's the domain.
Remember, I just want the domain. So the domain is just the x. Remember, by saying it's decreasing, I'm already telling you what is decreasing. The y. I need to know the domain for which it's decreasing. So it's decreasing from negative 4 to what? First off, is that 8 a domain value?
No.
Nope. So notice it's decreasing here. Now Jaden said negative infinity. Do y'all agree? Yes?
Keep going.
It does keep going, but I'm going to disagree.
It's positive.
Why is it positive?
Because it's going right now.
We got to remember, do I want domain or range?
Domain.
I want domain, which is the x. And you see how it's going to the right. So Jaden, this is a normal mistake that most students make, that they look at the fact that it's going down. But is down a domain idea?
No. Well, is it not also going that way too?
Not for the decrease side though.
Oh, okay.
Because remember, we always read from left to right. So it's decreasing only through here, and x is going towards what? To infinity in the domain. This is another way you can say it's just increasing on the interval. So where would this start increase? Oh, by the way, don't forget, you would have a slightly different answer because it depends on where your vertex is, whatever the x value of your vertex. But would this be different? No, it's still positive infinity for your decrease. So where is the function increasing?
From negative infinity to 2.
Remember, you always read from left to right. And so, would it be increasing all the way through here? Yes. So what's the x value where it starts to increase?
Negative infinity to. Wouldn't it be positive infinity too? Because it's always increasing.
So remember, the question is, what's the lowest and what's the highest? So it starts increasing all the way over here, and it increases in this direction, right? So what are the x values all the way over here?
Negative.
Negative, so that it's negative infinity on the left-hand side. Does that make sense, Jade?
Well, I mean, like, wouldn't the other interval be positive? Because it's always increasing. It's always going to go to the right.
So But, okay, I see what you're saying. Remember, -4 is the leftmost x value, right? Positive infinity is the rightmost x value. So here I need the leftmost x value, which is all the way in this direction, and these are negative x's.
So it'll stop.
So it's negative infinity on the far left. And you gotta remember, it's starting there. Okay, so you're good with the fact that there's an and infinity on this side. And you're good with the fact that these are negatives. So on this side is negative infinity. Okay? So it's increasing from negative infinity to, for this function, so Jesus thinks 8. Does anyone want to push back on that or ask a question about that? Does anyone want to ask a question about that or push back on that, or are we all good with that?
It wouldn't be 8.
It wouldn't be 8? Why?
It would be -4.
Why would it be -4?
Because we're still talking about the domain, aren't
Are we still talking about the domain?
we? Yes.
Yes?
No.
So, no? Remember, we always want a domain interval for which the function, for which the outputs are increasing. So I still want domain, which is the x. Are you good with that, Jakeem?
Yes.
Okay? So I want domain, and is that a domain value, Jesus? So what do I need? -4 in the domain. Notice I have to say in the domain somewhere to indicate I'm talking about which values. X. You always need to be talking about your x. Not for intervals of increase and decrease. If you look in the textbook, the way we define the intervals of increase and decrease is that it's the domain interval for which the y values are increasing or they're decreasing. So we're always doing a domain interval. So we use the y, Jesus, to tell us if it's increasing or decreasing, but we're always talking about the x's when we write about it. Okay? So that gets us through what, number 5? So number 6. Now this is where we have to be careful. It says identify the domain interval where h of x is negative. Let's start there. Look, and everyone's going to have a slightly different graph here. Increasing and decreasing is not the same as positive and negative. Does anyone see where h of x is negative? Does anyone see where h of x is negative? So, I want to point this out. 0, 0. Is 0 a negative number?
No.
So it's neither positive nor negative. That might help us.
Anything to the left of it.
So all of this here is negative?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, anything to the left.
That's what it is.
It's on the left side of the.
Okay? But I want you to remember, h of x is negative. Is that my input or my output? That's the output. At least this part right here is the output negative.
No.
I need you to answer the question first. And then we'll come back to what you're saying. Is this h of x negative?
Yes.
No, that's a positive.
If h of x is my output, again, is output x or y?
Why?
Are these y values negative?
No.
Thank you. These y values are?
Positive.
So this is where we would say h of x is positive. Right there. Anything, say that one more time. Below the x-axis. Because we got to remember, h of x is my output. So where I see negatives is down here and down here. H of x is negative. I would make a note to myself on my graph and on the paper, the function is negative when, so negative when below the x-axis. Remember, we're talking about those outputs, the y values. So if it's below the x-axis, it's negative. It's positive when function is above. Okay.
How would you write that?
What?
Like for the interval?
The interval?
Would it
So-
be, would it be the two x-intercepts?
Well, that'd be part of it, but I want you to notice, how many intervals do we have where it's negative?
2.
2. So you'd have to do 2 different intervals, right?
But use both.
Is the first question about positive or negative?
One is negative. So
Yeah, when it's negative.
So you
So
start,
h of x is, and so this would be number 6, h of x is negative from
what point is it?
negative infinity to, that point is negative 8, 0. So to negative 8, and then 0 to infinity for the domain. So notice we have 2 different negative intervals there. And again, it will change depending on what function you have there for number 5. Or number 6, sorry, that's number 5. Or that is number 6. The interval where h of x is negative. I have a lot written there, so I'm about to erase some of it. It's not quite so busy. Now, I do need you to remember, it's not random that this is happening. How did we get the function h of x?
F of x times f of x.
Right, because g of x, or technically f of x times g of x. But those are being multiplied.
Yes.
Notice right here, to the left of that x-intercept, what is f of x? Is that positive or negative?
Positive.
It's above the x-axis, so it's positive. What is g of x? It's going to be negative. What's a positive times a negative?
Negative.
Oh, that's why it's negative. And it depends for each of you. I don't think this one will be true. But I want you to notice right here, h of x is positive. Well, what is f of x?
Negative.
Negative. G of x is?
Negative.
And what's a negative times a negative?
Positive.
Positive. I think for most of you, when you're positive, your f of x and your g of x will be positive values. Is that what you see for yours, Jesus? See how your parabola? So like right here for Jesus and his group, their parabola is positive right here, correct? Notice f of x is above the x-axis, so that is positive. G of x is above the x-axis, so that is positive. And what's a positive times a positive? Positive. Right? So there's 2 different ways to get that there. Miss Courtney will wrap this up a little bit tomorrow, but I want to point this out, and I need you to notice this very heavily. Where does the function change from being positive to negative? Where does the function change from being positive to negative? What?
On the x-axis.
Not just the x-axis, the
Intercept.
x-intercepts. We got to notice that it's at the x-intercepts that those change. And how are we getting those x-intercepts if we think about the linear factors? What is that for the linear factors? Those are also the what? X-intercepts. Because what are the y values there? 0. So, the last little detail that we're going to at least write down today to make sure you have is, what are the roots of the transformed function? This is number 8. What are the roots of the transformed function? Well, it depends on what group you're in, but if you're in group 2, it was x equals -8 because that was where the x-intercept was, right? And I think everyone has at least one root in common. What's the root that everyone has in common? X equals 0. Oh. My bad, guys. You'll wrap that up tomorrow. The only homework that is actually due tomorrow is this review right here. If you can ignore the rest of it, we didn't get to those ideas. But this review to help you get ready for your unit test or 9 weeks exam on Friday. So we got that right there. Actually, y'all is on Friday. The 9 weeks exam. Please remember that 9 weeks exam is going to cover everything from the entire 9 weeks. Hey, Jake One, are you still coming during your original today?
No.
Jake One.
He said he might.
Yes. You have to take the exam.
You're not taking it, right?
You might need like,
Yeah, you can't exempt. One, you're not exempt. Two, you can't exempt until the fourth time. Who do you have here? Barnett? I'm emailing Barnett. I need you to come in so that we can sit down and look at your test pressure. I won't be here tomorrow. I will be here, so I'm going to have extra tutoring. So I'll have morning and afternoon on Wednesday, and Thursday afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh, but you come during Thursday. Yes, I won't be here tomorrow. Talk with Miss Courtney after class, see if she can help you, but I'll be here Thursday. I go to the original Miss Q. They don't do exemptions in the middle of the semester. It's always at the end of the semester. I know, but Jake One, we got to get your grade up. I need you to come during enrichment so we can get you to do a retest. Work on those test corrections.
If I say a few minutes now with this college tutoring now,
I mean, if you stay for like 5 minutes, no, that's not going to help
well,
you
not
learn.
five, really,
5 minutes is going to help you?
No, I'm saying I wasn't gonna say 5 minutes.
Okay,